Here.
Here.
Thank you. If you please stand for the invocation. Reverend Anderson.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this time. Thank you for these individuals who have volunteered their time to come and make decisions for your city. Pray that we make decisions that will be beneficial. It's in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've all received a copy of November 5th meeting minutes. We have. It's been moved and second to approve the minutes of the November 5th meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Mr. Baptiste, presentations.
Yes, Madam Chairman, under presentation, we have
Thank you, Ms. Ballou.
Good evening. It's great to be here for another update. This will be our third quarter update. Give you a chance to get it. At this time, we have about 180 clients on our waiting list. That list consists of those people who are working through credit issues, those who are pre-approved. That's our whole list. Anybody that's in the program, we just call it a waiting list. So they're not necessarily waiting to do something. Some of those people have pre-approvals, so they're just waiting on a house to be built. We had 45 clients complete the home buyer education certification training during this quarter. We have 4 clients in our credit repair program, which is outside of our agency. We have referred those people to a professional, what we call credit cleaner. So they are working with them on preparing their credit for home ownership. We recently sold 2 homes during this reporting period. The timeline hasn't changed much from the last time I presented. We are starting the next 7 homes actually this week. So we have those beginning, and then we still have the plans for 7 in January, and then the final 8 starting in March. So we are sort of caught up. We've gotten behind on the infrastructure. It took a while for the city to put in the infrastructure, but we're starting to catch up. And to resolve that issue, the city has provided us some with funding so that we can now do our own infrastructure. Instead of waiting on the city crews, we can now add that with the contractor for the construction. So we hope that that will cut down on some of the delays that we've had in the past, and that we'll be able to install the infrastructure as we're building the houses and not have to wait for water or sewer lines. So that's something that the city has done recently for us. We're still experiencing lower than normal appraisals. You know, we discussed this before. Due to the fact that there are no comps in Port Arthur, there are no other new houses being built within the 3-mile radius of this project. So we are still, looking at lower than almost construction costs. Next year, the houses will go up. Well, we're building at 135. We're estimating they're going to be 145. Because of the hurricane and the higher cost of a lot of the framing materials, the cost is going up to match that. But the appraisals are slowly getting there. Right now, our houses are appraising at 135, which is good because when we built our first house, it appraised for $99,000. I think you remember we had to do the $30,000 construction because it only appraised for $99,000, even though we paid $130,000 for it. So it is slowly moving up. So we are working to try to resolve that issue as much as we can. We're working with the appraisers, trying to find out what can we do to help with the appraisals, looking for comps. We may even have to build a house midway, like the 32 to 3600 block of Memorial Boulevard, which will allow us to get comps from Lake Arthur for that house. And then that house is 3 miles from downtown, which will allow us to use that house as a comp for this project. So we're having to be really creative to try to get these values up. As I mentioned, the city's helping to do some offsetting of the infrastructure cost. We're also working with some lenders who are coming to the table with some down payment assistance. Right now, Chase Bank is offering about $2,500 to $3,000 worth of help to buyers who get mortgages through them, so we're working on that. And also, we may have to look at, if none of those things work, we may have to look at reducing some of the finishes. You know, that's a last resort, where we had tile going to vinyl, where we had 3 sides brick, 1 side brick. We're trying to avoid that, but that may be something that we have to look at in the future if all else fails. But other than that, and then we also had 2 truckloads of faucets, fixtures, doorknobs, and cabinet pulls donated to us from a nonprofit in Houston. So we made 2 trips, 2 U-Haul trips, picked that up, and so we're going to use those items in these houses, which will help cut down on some of the costs. And they were high-end fixtures donated by Price Vista for hurricane relief. And so we'll have some actually higher-end products that were donated. So we're hoping to offset some of the costs with some of those donations. So we're still working on that. And during this quarter, we had an open house in October. I don't know if everyone got a chance to come out and see the houses. So we did provide you with some slides of the interiors. This first house is 1128 6th Street, just giving you an idea of the cabinetry. This is a kitchen photo. We did have over 300 people come through that day. So that was good. And out of the 300, we actually have 40 applications. You know, a lot of them were just kind of looky-loos, but we did get 40 applications. And that's about average. Usually it's 1 for every 10 applications is an average nationally for homeownership. So out of those 40, we're hoping, you know, they all turn into buyers. These are some of the closer look at some of the custom touches. We have like soft close cabinets. This is a picture of that and some of the shower. So we're doing custom type homes here just to help bring up the values of the properties. You can see some of the cabinetry work. The granite countertops in the bath and the kitchens, that's necessary. Those bring in about $5,000 on the appraisal value. So we're trying not to cut the granite at all because we need that to keep the appraisals up and also to maintain that finished look and also be more sustainable for long term. Still more, you know, you can see the inside. This one is 1148 6th Street. This house has the last set of actual custom cabinetry. We're going prefab, but on the other pictures you can see those are the prefab. The gray ones are custom, hand painted, but on the other pictures you'll see those are high quality prefab cabinets. You can't really tell the difference because it's a very high quality cabinet. Same soft close. So we are trying to find ways to cut the cost but keep the quality of the houses. I'm showing here a picture of a stand-in shower. We have several of our clients who are disabled. The stand-in shower is extra. People who want that must pay for it in advance. So, you know, those who need that, we do provide that for handicap accessibility. Just during the open house, we had face painting, the radio station there. La Costa Dental came out and worked with the kids. We had a kids area so that we can encourage the families to come out. And it was right after the construction of the St. Mary's Park, so we were trying to connect the open house with the park. I don't know if you've had a chance to drive by, but we did build the St. Mary's Park in one day with volunteers. It was a city grant with Kaboom, and we all worked for one day, and we have a park now there on the corner of 5th Street in Augusta, and we hope to be able to eventually add on to that park at some point. Our homebuyer education courses are still monthly. The calendar hasn't changed. We try to do them on the 3rd Saturday of each month, so we're still constantly having the homebuyer education courses. We've reached out to several churches on the west side, so we're going to have one specifically for those churches at the West Side Community Center in January. So we're trying to, go out into the community more, do everything that we can do to market the program. Are there any questions?
How many houses have been completed?
We have 6 houses complete,
6.
7 with the one that we did previously, yes, I'm sorry.
I see a lot of houses around that are that type of house, a lot more than 6. So there's been a building program going on for quite a while, huh?
Yes, that we own the 4 on Fifth Street. Those were houses that were built under another program. They're in the 1100 block of Fifth Street.
Over at where St. Mary's was?
Those were built with
Yeah.
St. Mary's.
Yeah. I
There's
went by
some
there.
around the area that were built through the city's programs. So there's some infill houses that were built there. So, but we have noticed, even with some of the surrounding or the neighboring people, they've started doing better with their yards, the existing houses there. And we're still waiting on the city to step up and do the renovations of the surrounding houses. So, but so far it's made a big difference already in that community. We get a lot of calls, a lot of people wanting to buy cash, like outside of the program, people who just want to buy a house that are over income. So we've had a lot of interest. And I think if we can continue and working towards doing some of the neighborhood cleanup, I've talked with the police department a couple of times about working with us on the BJ situation over there, helping us keep that area clear of people, vagrants. But other than that, we've not had any issues, security, safety issues on this project in the last 2 years.
Marks?
Yes, on the infrastructure, you said it's going to be done in-house right now rather than through the city. What type of savings are you going to realize by doing, or will there be any savings?
Well, the city currently contracts it out anyway, and the bid on the city's contractor was higher than our contractor. So we'll save on that, plus time. The city has to go through a procurement process that's long, and we've just had some issues with that process and timing. It put us about 2 or 3 months behind on this project. So we're hoping if we can control the infrastructure, control the sidewalks, we can control the pace of the project going forward.
So you're looking at saving a month to 2 months on construction time
We
with
hope
the
so.
infrastructure?
Yes, we hope so. Because the city usually has to put out something for bid. I think they have to run an ad for twice in a month, then they award through the council. So I think it's going to save on time. And also the fact that you have a learning curve. A lot of the guys that bid on these jobs, they've done street work, but they've never really done houses. And so it's a little bit different situation, because we have the guy that we have now says, I've never done this for a housing project. So he didn't realize that you have to put grass on the other side of the sidewalk. There's a lot of things that come with building a house versus building a street that a lot of the bidders, are not aware of. So we hope to avoid some of the pitfalls that we've run into and be able to move more smoothly and, just a seamless process.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
Of the 7 houses that were sold, how many are being occupied now? I know you just said 2.
Once they're sold, they're occupied.
Right. How many?
We have the ones that have sold of all occupied, that's 7.
Oh, okay.
We have 2 that are still on 1118, 1128 are not sold. They're sold but not occupied. We haven't closed. We have a lady that's waiting. She got caught up in that VA delay of funding, and so she's waiting on her funds from the VA to be able to finish her process. And then we had one who had a family issue. So we're hoping to have those 2, 1118 and 1128, closed this month. But all of our houses have buyers. When we built them, we have a buyer that's already pre-qualified for that house.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I just want to say, I certainly appreciate the effort and the work Ms. Ballou and her staff and the contract that put into making this project a success. And like she said, we had a lot of water delay. We had a lot of delay from the city. I think the city turning over the infrastructure money going to make things go a little quicker, and it's going to be a little cheaper. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo Mr. Baptiste. Thank you so much for all you've done.
One last question. I think I've asked this in a previous meeting. Homeowners Association, guidelines about cleaning up the city and keeping things. Have there been any plans put in place to put something together like that so our incoming buyers and the surrounding areas know that they're going to be required to do some maintenance?
Yeah, we have a post-purchase class that they're all required to take, so it's coming up in January. Well, we'll talk about more. We already go through the maintenance, all those things through our pre-purchase, but we'll have a post-purchase. You know, now that you're living there for the last 3 months, you know, just trying to check in on things. There's no homeowners association in that area, but we do have a group that we're forming, and they've already started. You know, those same people who were, I guess, prospective buyers, they built the park. You know, they've already started working together, becoming a group. We're going to have a meeting with the police department just to kind of create a neighborhood watch, but there is no homeowners association, but we hope to have a group there that they would be able to form a neighborhood watch.
Madam Chairman, I have a question to the lawyer. Can a community or an area of town create their own homeowners association, or it's a neighborhood watch? Because I know earlier we talked about a neighborhood watch. I heard something about forming a neighborhood association would be difficult. We couldn't do it in an unrestricted area.
Well, that's the question, is do you want to build in some of the requirements that a homeowners association might have with because they're usually, the ones I'm familiar with, create a structure that also then makes assessments for things, and whether that would be beneficial or not here, I couldn't really say. I think that what Mr. Marks was alluding to, which is important, and Vivian and them taking great pains to do this, is to educate their buyers both before and after the program and to collaborate with the city. I think a neighborhood association, while it might be interesting, the neighborhood watch is really important for them to work with the police department to make sure that they're doing all the things they can to keep the neighborhood safe. For what these people are investing in these homes, and if you've driven by how nice they are, I would think they would really want to ensure that they keep the quality of that neighborhood high for themselves and their future neighbors, because it's like any neighborhood. You want to have collaboration, and I think that whether we would need to do that in some formal way with fees, I'm not sure would be really beneficial or not.
When there's an association fee, that's counted as debt. So we would have to say, just say if it's $45 a month, when they're going to get their loan, that would be counted against them as an additional debt that they would have to pay. So it could preclude some people from being able to purchase a home. We've had that happen where they couldn't add any more debt.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree.
Yeah, we agree. But what I was actually alluding to is the fact that the surrounding areas are the blighted areas where people, you've got high grass on vacant lots, you've got slabs that have been abandoned in lots, and to actually increase the value of the property, or to maintain the value of the property.
Yes.
We want to make sure that a new homeowner going in at $145,000 does not lose any value on their property because of the area that's surrounding that.
And the city has expanded its target area to, I think, Gulfway Drive. So where we stop right now at 8th Street, they're taking it all the way to Gulfway Drive. So eventually, that whole area between, let's say, Proctor to Gulfway Drive is a target area. So in the next, I guess, 3 to 5 years, that whole area will be new, and all of that vacant property and hopefully that will be taken care of.
Any other questions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Baptiste, Communications.
Guys that agreed to the, those who want to go to the economic forecast breakfast, I think this is just a flyer showing you guys the date and the time. Both of these guys, I know Jeff real well. I know Patrick real well. Both of those guys are fine speakers and they know their business. So they would be worthwhile for you guys going out there.
All right, we'll move on to our agenda items. Number 1, to discuss for possible consideration the approval of an economic incentive and purchase agreement, including a right of first refusal for approximately 12 acres with Standard Alloy for 22 acres of land at Spur 93 Business Park. Mr. Baptiste.
Madam Chair, I'm going to yield to Kate.
As you all know, we've been working with Standard Alloys over the past couple of months to finalize a purchase agreement for 22 acres in the Port Arthur Business Park. They plan to move their facility in Orange County over to the Port Arthur Business Park. And I'm happy to say that Standard Alloys and the EDC have come to an agreement on all of the terms the EDC board was comfortable with. So I recommend you guys approving the purchase agreement for the 22 acres. And it does contain in there a provision to say that they have the right of first refusal for the additional 12 acres, which is located adjacent to the 22 acres.
I'd like to say thanks to Floyd and Kate and to Standard Alloys. This is, you talk about the 2 months. We've really been negotiating with them for the better part of this year. And to my knowledge, this will be the largest transaction that the EDC has accomplished in the business park. We've had 2 or 3 other prior possible tenants with fairly large acreage, and we're very pleased with the tenants that are there that are sitting on multi-acre tracts. But this will be far and away the largest. This will be a multi-phase project. The 12 acres would be a 4th phase. It would be, as I think we can say, ultimately a collaboration between Standard Alloy and some of its customers for some additional facilities. But the 22 acres will be Standard Alloy company facilities. So, and we want to thank their council, who Kate's worked with a whole lot, working through all of these nuances with them. So, very pleased that this thing has got to this point.
Do you have any kind of numbers as to what their total investments on the, I mean, the future that they're projecting?
Would you pull your mic down? Your mic.
Building-wise,
Phase 1 investment is about $17 million.
It's ultimately to be a 4-phase project. Not all of them are of equivalent size, but there are to be 4 phases to the project if it gets built out as complete as they hope.
move for approval.
Moved and second to approve agenda item number 1. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 2, to discuss for possible consideration ratifying the purchase of new PC workstations for EDC staff. Mr. Baptiste.
Yes, Madam Chairman, last board meeting, you guys approved us moving forward. We did send it to the council. The council did approve us purchasing the PCs. I think Joni have gone out she went out for bid, and I think it's some, I don't know, is HP she getting? HP? Yeah, she's getting some HP. We're just bringing it back to you guys to say that, you know, it has been purchased. And we'll ask you guys to ratify it because we didn't have quotes when we first came to you guys.
So move.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 2. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, to discuss for possible consideration going out for bids for architectural services for the renovation of the Port Arthur News Building at 549 4th Street.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, again, I'm going to yield this one to Kate.
As you guys know, we are moving forward with the retrofit of the Port Arthur News Building, and as part of the EDA guidelines, you guys have to follow federal procurement guidelines. So we prepared a request for qualification for an architect to develop the plans for the retrofit, and we have advertised it in the Port Arthur News per federal guidelines. I'm pretty sure it ran this past Saturday, and it will run this coming Saturday because the Port Arthur News now has a Saturday-Sunday paper. And we're scheduled to award on, or we actually accept the responses on December 14th. And this, we also are doing the same thing for the environmental abatement services. We prepared a request for qualifications, and we're running that legal advertisement in the news. It ran this past Saturday, Sunday, and it will run again this upcoming Saturday and Sunday, and the responses are due on December 14th.
Any questions? Heard agenda item number 3. May I have a 4? I'm sorry. 3 and 4.
Second.
Question. How long after the bids are in that we're going to award?
What we're going to do, agenda item number 5, if it's the pleasure of the board, we're going to constitute a review committee. Whenever these respondents respond to the RFQs, they provide a pretty thick booklet on why they should be considered. And in the RFQ document, there's actually a scoring matrix that gives weight to each specific thing, such as experience on this sort of project. It'll have in there the actual people that will be staffed and their services, and it's a scoring matrix that totals 100. And so what the review committee will do, which is pleasure of the board, is they'll actually go through each response, they'll total it, and then we'll most likely, depending on the EDA schedule, call a special meeting, and the committee will recommend to the board who they believe is the most qualified for the position. And we've just found that the reason the committee is helpful, it's overwhelming for the board to get the booklets and go through them at one board meeting. You would be here for quite some time reviewing everything. And that's the best way to handle it. In the RFQ, it doesn't state that when the board awards, it just states that, the bids are due, and then we'll probably schedule a meeting pretty soon thereafter, probably that next week, to go ahead and award.
Well, I think, Kate, it's due on the 14th, and I think the subcommittee, they formed the subcommittee review, and depending on how many, if they want to interview 1 or 2 of them, they should bring them in here. And then from there, we come back to the board so that when we go back to the board, we know what we're going with, That's
Right.
my idea.
Right. Yeah.
And with the intervening holidays, it may be difficult for you all. So it may be January meeting. Remember, the January meeting is always a little late because it's the annual meeting. It moves back a week. So what we were talking about is maybe if you had a special meeting, not talking about the week of Christmas, but sometime maybe post then, but before when your January meeting would be, which is the annual meeting date, which is the next week on a Tuesday, rather than the first week on a Monday.
And usually in the RFQ, and I'm pretty sure this one has it, but I'll have to double check. It usually says it's good for 90 days. So they understand that once you guys receive, it's going to take you a little bit to review. So they would not be expecting a 1 week turnaround.
A motion and a second on the floor to approve agenda items number 3 and 4. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 5, to discuss for possible consideration forming a RFQ review committee for the request for quotes for architectural services and the professional environmental abatement services for the Port Arthur News Building.
Madam Chairman, as Kate said, I think a committee of this board, myself, I would say no more than 2 guys because 3 is very close to a quorum.
If you do get,
board
if
member-
if the board says they want, 3 members, that's fine. We always encourage them to post anyway. You still have the right to put an executive session. So I think what we'll probably do, and the only reason I'd say 3, Floyd, for this reason, we may get a number of proposals on each one of these services. So I have a feeling everybody's going to have a good bit of homework to do. So, but even if we do post, because we're really giving this committee, if it's the pleasure of the board to set it, some authority to come back and make a recommendation. So whenever we create a committee that actually has that much authority, like we did with our bylaws committee, we post those agendas, but we also post them with an executive session so y'all could move to a deliberation about the, because this is the award of a contract, and so, and your lawyers would be there. So again, if the pleasure of the board, Madam Chairman, a committee of 3 is fine, and we will make sure that it's duly posted so everything can follow form.
Question, Madam Chairman. Guy, in regards to the references for the work that's been done by these contractors prior to them putting the RFQ, will that be a part of the process?
It is part of the RFQ for them to give us references for similar projects, and I don't expect that will be an issue for the architectural firms because most of them will be wanting to give you a view of what they have done. In fact, one that Kate and I worked on here fairly recently, I think we received about 4 proposals, and a large portion of that RFQ was the work they had done for prior projects.
On page 3, part of their response, they have to put their references. So
And
you'll
again,
see, and then and they also have the scoring matrix. It's in the packets. So part of it is their references, familiarity with the proposed work, et cetera, and then you'll see how everything is scored in there. So that is a part of what they have to turn in.
And whether it's the committee or the staff or us that you want, we do recommend that people follow up, as you would know, with those references to make sure that they check out as represented. Thank you, sir.
A motion to approve the committee, and then we'll make appointments.
And
Do we need to name them in the motion?
I would go ahead and do that for the record, Madam Chairman. If you have 3 people, either volunteers or without volunteers, you can name volunteers.
I'd like to serve on the committee.
I'd volunteer if you,
Okay.
I'd volunteer.
And Mr. Marks?
Mr. Sharfus, Mr. Marks, and you would be the committee.
Yes.
Thank
Yes. Okay. Okay. Now,
Thank you.
maybe we had a motion? Okay. Do we have a second? Second. It's been moved and second to approve Mr. Sharfus, Mr. Marks, and I to serve on the review committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, to discuss for possible consideration approval of the guidelines and an agreement with Lamar State College, Port Arthur for a 2-year training program for graduating Port Arthur High School students. Crystal?
Good evening, board members.
Thank you.
Okay, as you may recall, last board meeting, I came before you all on this particular agenda item, and we have a committee that has reviewed these guidelines before. What came out of the last committee meeting, we were going to do a little bit more finding of facts regarding some of the study fields that Lamar State College has to offer after reviewing with our attorneys on what we may be able to fund as far as a tuition fund for Lamar State College students. Again, it's for high school students Port Arthur residents coming out of high school looking for a 2-year degree going through Lamar State College, Port Arthur. Just to give you a recap, we are trying to fund 5 students up to $13,500. In front of you, you should have, in your packet, you should have the training agreement. And also added to it, that was outside of your packet, was the actual guidelines that headlines LSCPA tuition fund. Now, on those guidelines on the first page, you'll see there the 8 major study fields that we focused on, those being drafting, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, instrumentation technology, medical coding specialist, medical office administration, process technology, surgical technology, and nursing. Now, a good bit of those are all industrial fields. As you know, as a 4A EDC, we tend to focus on industrial jobs, which we call our primary jobs. The other medical fields, those are justified by being high demand in this area at this current time. So after reviewing with our attorneys, Lamar State College, we have found that those medical fields of study are a very high demand in this area as far as the workforce, as well as with Lamar State College and their student enrollment. So if, with the pleasure of the board and the committee, if you are okay with these guidelines, we can move forward and sending them out to the schools and getting started on this tuition fund.
Any comments by any of the committee members?
Just like to make the comment to thank Mr. Anderson and Ms. Marks and others that spent the time to work on this, and thank Floyd and Kate as well. We want to remember that part of this derives from the fact that thanks to the special legislation that was passed in 2013 that gives you all some more latitude on spending EDC funds for training, that the programs that the committee with Crystal's help and Dr. Bernard and others at Lamar State College, Port Arthur, we've identified important areas, and hopefully this will continue to develop, trained individuals in high demand fields and industrial fields. And again, we're pleased that thanks to the wording of the statute, this one did not have an expiration date. So as long as we sadly suffer from the higher than normal unemployment numbers, we will continue to be able to do this, but we feel this is an important step. And we will make certain that in the resolution that goes over to the city, that the city is reminded about that our genesis of this is not only our training rights and generally, but that special legislation that Chairman Destel and Floyd and other members of this body were able to get passed almost 5 years ago.
I see you have a minimum grade of 2.5 on a 4-point, but want to be very subjective, and how are you going to pick these people? What's the process?
Well, the same committee that assisted in creating the guidelines for this program, we're also going to have the committee come back together and review some of those applications, well, all of the applications, and we'll create a.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to say that this is a great program, well thought out, something that I probably never would have come up with on my own, just knowing how things work around here. It's awesome. And Mr. Smith and Mr. Marks were both on that committee with me, and we had a lot of great discussion. So this piece of paper, I gladly say I make a motion that we approve this.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 6. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for spending all your time in working on these guidelines. It is a very important program. It's putting back into our community to help with so many issues that we have, and we certainly appreciate that. Agenda item number 7, to discuss for possible consideration the extension of a microloan for a client to executive session. Okay. Agenda item number 7 will be taken to executive session. Agenda item number 8, to discuss for possible consideration making application for EDA disaster recovery grant. Mr. Betty.
Okay.
Crystal.
As you may know, we've applied for an EDA grant for the Port Arthur News Building. There remains funds available for disaster recovery through the Economic Development Administration. In discussion with Mr. Baptiste, we're throwing around some ideas on how we can possibly try to get some more funds for the community. If you recall, a couple of months ago, we started discussions with Valero and their contractors as far as training and how to close the gap here in our community and getting Port Arthur residents trained and in some of those jobs. One thing I heard constantly from those contractors is there's a lack of basic training that comes out of some of the students that go through the basic training facilities that are in the area right now. So a common consensus was a off-site training facility that all the contractors, industry can possibly come use, create their own curriculum, and do as-needed training. So we reached out to Lamar State College. They have been very helpful in working with us and trying to figure out what can we do. So our intent is to possibly go out to EDA one more time and request funding to create a industrial training facility. It would be at Lamar State College, Port Arthur. They have a facility there, which is the Armory building that's already in existence. We would hopefully take that, renovate it, and create an industrial facility geared and to the needs of those contractors. Lamar State College has already put together a survey that we've sent out to all of the local contractors in the area, other employers as well, all industrial, to get their feedback on what is needed. Where are they lacking as far as training? What aren't they getting from these other training facilities? What could we possibly have available for them to make sure they have a ready workforce to get inside of these plants? So we're waiting on those results to come back to us. We plan to bring those contractors and those employers back together, have another meeting, and discuss a little bit more in detail on how we would put this training facility together. How would we design it? What kind of equipment would they need? Where would the curriculum come from? So with your permission, we'd like to have permission to go out and possibly submit another application to the Economic Development Administration for this.
Question. With that, for which I do support what you're saying, I think that's a very good initiative. But also, if there's a possibility we can get whatever their testing standards they'll be testing to grade those students against, or those people that's come up with those shortages, I would love to know what their standards are that they need to meet to meet that next step so they can move forward beyond the shortcomings they're telling they do have. So I would recommend that we get that as well.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question as well. Have we already reached out to the company that we have in the city that do the industrial training already to try to see if we can help them to come up to the standards that they are obviously missing?
I'm glad you asked that question because one thing we would try to do is incorporate this facility with the current trainers that are in the city to hopefully enhance. The college can do a lot more focused training. They can enhance the training that's already available. So we would hopefully work in partnership with those training facilities and have a housed facility here locally downtown Port Arthur where they're not having to travel to Nederland or Beaumont for whether it's basic plumbing training, electrical, welding. They're having to travel rather far. So hopefully this centralized location, working in partnership with other training facilities and along with Lamar State College, we can try to make sure we're getting up to par.
My understanding was that we had a local, Port Arthur training facility. And I'm trying to think of the name. No. I'm sorry. GTech.
Yes, you're right. GTech, as a matter of fact, they approached us a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact, and they did made us aware of their program that they just opened here in Port Arthur. I think they were working out of the CIC building in Beaumont. So they did just open their own local NCCER facility. Now, the thing with GTech and as well as ABC, which is the other training facility in the area, they are providing basic NCCER safety training, a lot of theory. What I'm hearing from the contractors is they need just a tad bit more hands-on. So the hope with this facility would be to actually have more equipment, more time. Where the other thing too is a lot of these students work during the day, so it would be also a facility to be focused on those workers that are already in the workforce and trying to move up to the next level. So they could come at different hours and be trained and use the equipment as needed, so that they're not tied to a certain program and those timelines that are offered through these other programs.
GTech has been around for a while, and I'm not a proponent for reinventing the wheel. If there's a business that we can maybe go in and help, I do understand the need though, and that's really what my thinking is. And I can think of some times where they have actually come in and done some work as well. And I haven't been to their facility in a while, but if I don't know how much information you have about them or what you've seen, or have you been to their facilities that they have, but I think that would be the first thing to do, to try to see if we can help that particular business to get on their feet versus going and building something against them, because I know it's not a competition thing, but it is competition when you bring in another training facility.
And you bring a good idea, and we can definitely throw that out there whenever we start meeting with these contractors and see if that may be a better way to enhance those programs rather than another facility. This is in the very early stages, so right now, just to be able to move forward with it all, tonight we're just asking for your permission to start applying at least, but we will start discussions with these contractors and the employers and finding out what their need is, and then maybe we can decide how we're going to go about meeting those needs.
There may be an opportunity for partnering with some of these companies as opposed to going out starting our own thing, but there may be different components that we'll need. So if we partner with them, then it's a win-win for everybody, and we're supporting those businesses in our community.
Right, definitely.
Commissioner, Madam Chairman, I think we could reach out to all these providers. I think one of the things that we Crystal been meeting with these contractors. One of the things I have learned is that they have learned that the problem is not ours, the problem is theirs, and they're trying to take the lead in a lot of this stuff, because if they can't get a qualified workforce, it's going to cost them a lot of money. So I'm just happy that they're coming forward now. I've spoken to 3 of them so far, and we're going to reach out to everybody that we can to make this thing a whole and not a part. But I certainly would like industry and the subcontractors to take the lead on this thing, and I think it's going to be a good for this whole community if they do.
Mr. Baptiste and Kate and I had an opportunity to be briefed on this just before the meeting. A couple of other key elements. Recall with any EDA grant, it's an 80-20 match. So someone's going to have to bring some equity to the table. So we have work to do with determining how that can happen between the EDC, Lamar, because you've got to, as we most clearly stated, you've got to have a facility, and then you've got to be able to create the equipment, the material, to be able to train these people beyond what they may be doing now. But one other thing we also have to remember is the EDC does not want to be the trainer. So at the end of the day, yes, you would definitely need to look at collaborations with either present trainers, with Lamar State College. You probably need several partners I mean, this is going to be a collaboration of several people, not an EDC project. I mean, the Port Arthur News Building is a different animal because we're doing EDC specifically related projects. This is a different cat altogether that Crystal and them are working on. This is to create a need, to try to fill that need on training that at least we're still told is that we have a large population but not trained to meet the job requirements of current industry. So how do you fill that gap? Clearly, the EDC would not be the operator.
Just one comment, I guess. Ms. Reverend Anderson actually works with the Cates Center, and there are some programs over there that actually translate into industry, and I want to know if we can partner or look at a partnership with identifying with PAISD at the Cates Center, identifying those students who have an interest in going into industry and into those crafts, and work with them and Lamar and the other training facilities. When you identify them at 16, 17, 18, when they come out, they'll be job ready and can go directly into the workforce. And I think we should consider that in
And that is
project.
the intent. We definitely intend to include the school districts. When I say school districts, Port Arthur and Sabine Pass, to collaborate with us. As a matter of fact, another thing I failed to mention, IEDC, the International Economic Development Council, reached out to us just this week. They are eagerly trying to help communities affected by disasters and by sending out volunteers completely funded by IEDC. So we did agree to possibly have one of those volunteers come down here and help us bring those people together so that we can create a collaboration. IEDC has a very good track record on strategic planning, so it'd be a benefit for us. So just so you know, we do plan on including IEDC on helping us collaborate.
I think that's a really good idea, and I think we've shared a lot of good ideas about what we want to be included in the grant. So I think this was very good discussion, very good discussion.
And the other thing, I'm going to add, Ms. Holm been a part of this thing. We, Chase, J.P. Morgan Chase, they have $1 million grant for 5 years, and we did submit an application. We feel very positive or good about it. The application, which includes all the players. It includes the school district, it includes the housing authority, it includes Lamar, it includes industry, it includes a lot of people. So, and the intent of Chase money is to do exactly what you said, Mr. Marcus, to take those kids at the younger age and grow them into the world of work and into a family and a home. So it's a process.
We actually apply, or we were a part of the partnership in applying?
We were part of the partnership. In fact, it had to be a 501c3, and we got Dr. Monroe and the Gulf Coast Museum to be the sponsor, but everybody else is.
Okay. Yeah. So we're starting to build those partnerships and collaborative efforts. Thank you, Mr. Ratty.
You have your motion.
Thank you. It's been moved in second.
One more thing, Ms. Holmes, I failed to mention, you guys, in the letter from EDA, from the Fed, they cited examples of award, and Port Arthur was one of the communities.
Good. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 8, to discuss for possible consideration an amendment to the milestones of the Economic Development Conditional Grant Agreement with Joe's Shopping Plaza. Mr. Betty, Crystal.
Okay, on Joe's Shopping Plaza, this was approved earlier this year. The payout terms for the performance by the Port Arthur EDC, we had in the agreement, we were going to pay out 88% of their incentive once they received their first certificate of occupancy, and the other 12 remaining percent once they received their second certificate of occupancy. Now, we usually do two ways whenever we do these infrastructure agreements. It can be 2 payouts, one upon their first certificate of occupancy and then the second upon their second CO. The other is 3 payouts, one whenever they complete the infrastructure, and then another 2 with their 2 certificate of occupancies. With this one, we didn't really look at the fact that he's going to be building from the ground up. So he had to put in infrastructure as far to get his going. A lot of times we do those payouts in 2 terms whenever the infrastructure is already there and they're renovating or just building on the infrastructure that's already existing. So with Joe's Shopping Plaza, what we'd like to do today is amend this agreement to pay out in 3 terms rather than 2, and it would be for the same amount. The amount doesn't change. We'd just like to do a 40% payout upon completion of infrastructure, and then 30% with their first CO, and the remaining 30% with their second CO.
This would be, in other words, no change in the dollar amount, change in the milestones, and just by reflection, which precedes everyone here, but Mr. Baptiste and I, the Red Wine Project, and then later Mr. Legrone and PA 69 were both done with part payout at infrastructure and then part payout with then subsequent COs. We just didn't structure it this time because I don't think we quite realized the extent of the infrastructure that was going to be required and the timing that was going to take ahead of either one of the COs being able to be issued. So it's just changing the point at which the money would be advanced, not the total amount of dollars.
So moved.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 9. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll move to reports, marketing, and business recruitment report.
Nana's out today, folks, and she didn't leave anything to report out on, did she? Rachel? She didn't leave anything. Okay.
Operational report, Crystal.
Okay, as far as employment and training, I think I've given you enough of what we've been working on in employment and training. Operational, I only have one report for you tonight. AJ Entertainment, just to give you guys a heads up, they have completed their project. That is the Real Cajun Seafood Restaurant and the warehouse that is at the corner of Jimmy Johnson and Twin City. So next meeting, you should be seeing an agenda item to close out their contract. We're just waiting for them to receive their last payout, and then we can release them. That was all I have for you.
Financial report.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Okay, we're going to start off on the first page, just giving you a small snapshot of where we are. The only things that really changed are when we're looking at expenditures. There's nothing more to really report to you at this time. Our projected revenue is $4,203,478. At this time, our current expenditures, are $425,319, which leaves an excess of revenue over by $3,778,159. We have a debt service of $884,974. At this time, we have funded $147,496 of that, leaving a balance to be funded of $737,478. That will leave us a net change in fund balance of $3,040,681. Our fund balance at the beginning of the year was $3,971,373. Our fund balance at the end of the year is projected to be at $7,012,054. I apologize. Our current remaining budget for this year is $7,516,451. Our actual fund balance at the year should be more because we will have excess in our current remaining budget that will not be used. Is there any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you. That completes my report for tonight.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Mr. Baptiste?
I have no report, ma'am.
Okay. At this time, we'll recess to a closed session. A closed session or executive session will be held pursuant to the following sections of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code. Number 1, Section 551.071 to discuss with attorney pending and potential litigation. Section 551.072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Section 551.075 to discuss matters of personnel. Section 551.087 to discuss incentives for commercial or industrial business prospects. The items will be discussed in open session after the executive session. At this time, we'll take a recess to executive session.
We'll be in tomorrow.
What's that?
So I'll have you live and bring it. Okay?
No worries.
Thank you, guys.
We'd like to reconvene the December meeting of the Port Arthur EDC. May we have a roll call, Mr. Baptiste?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Anderson? Here. Mr. Churchman? Chris Smith?
Here.
Mark? Here. Ms. Dallas Smith?
Here.
Ms. Holmes?
Here.
Mr. Stevens? Madam Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Baptiste. The board brought one item back for review, and that was to discuss for possible consideration making application. No, I'm sorry. To discuss for possible consideration the extension of a microloan for a client. The recommendation was to allow Mr. Baptiste to do a loan modification with the client. May we have a motion?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to agree that staff go back to the client and look at a loan modification. Did we vote? No. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. There being no further business, we move to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adjourn the December meeting. Have a very happy holidays, everybody.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Want that on tape.